Here we go. We are going to go live. We're going live, and we are live. Hey there, students. Tom Ritchie here, and we are going to get going with some AP Euro review. Now, as far as that goes, somebody's asking, where is our boy Ritchie in the YouTube chat? That's Snicker in the YouTube chat. Yo, Tomboy, start this up. Virginia Hayes, little shout out to you and your classmates. We are starting this up, so y'all go ahead. Now, at some point, we'll be doing some Instagram shout outs at Tom Ritchie. Now, a few things that I'm going to be, yep, here he comes. Hey, Tommy Strong, Melissa Matthews, Jacob, so awesome here. Tyson, good to see y'all tonight. And so I'm going to be doing a live review until 9 when I'm going to go to Marco Learning's channel, and we're going to, we're going to continue that. Okay. So we're going to continue on Marco Learning's channel. Okay. And then I want to tell y'all about an opportunity. I'm going to be doing an art review tonight. Okay. That's going to be at 9:30. And this is a premium art review. If you are in the YouTube stream, go ahead and refresh. You should see the Art of Euro in the description, okay? That the $10 ticket gets you to, to a live art review that's going to go at least 75 minutes, okay? Now, when you buy the ticket, there's also going to be a link when you go into the chat where you can have a link that you can share with your friends that'll go to an unlisted YouTube page, and they can also watch. So $10 not only gets you in, but it can get your friends, your classmates, your students if you're a teacher, okay? So understand that is going on there, the Art of Euro, okay? So that's going to be happening at 9:30 tonight, okay? So the Art of Euro, and that is going to be an art-focused review. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. We're going to go ahead and pin that message, and we'll go ahead and let people know in the Crowdcast, okay? So with that, also remember that Romulus Euro is available at the App Store, just a handy little trivia app that I think is going to be helpful, especially for those of you. Now, it's not stimulus-based questions, okay? That it's not to try to help you with stimulus-based questions. Who wants to do stimulus-based questions on an app anyway on their phone? But what this is for is if you're struggling with the SAQs, if you're struggling, to remember specific evidence for the SAQs, for the LEQ, it's just a little trivia app that you can use while you're waiting to take the exam, while you're on your way to school, if you're not driving, of course. So remember, Romulus Euro is there for you as well. That is at the App Store and Google Play. Let's go ahead and get this started now that we've heard from our sponsors. Can I briefly go over the Crimean War? Sure. Now, how it can be used as context for World War I, that's very interesting, Sophia. Now, one thing, don't decide how you're going to contextualize until you see the prompt, okay? Because remember, contextualization has to do not just with the topic, but with the prompt itself. So look at the prompt before you make the final decision on contextualization. So that's something to keep in mind here. But Sophia, the Crimean War is basically one thing that we're going to note here is it is seen as the end of the age of Metternich and the concert system. Okay, so the concert of Europe, that is pretty much over with the Crimean War, because Russia is trying to expand into Crimea. Sound familiar? And Britain and France, they say no. So Russia's basically taking advantage of Ottoman weakness. The Ottoman Empire by this time has become the quote unquote sick man of Europe. Okay, the sick man of Europe, the Ottoman Empire. And so with that the Russians are trying to take over that weakness, and Britain and France say no. Western Europe is not going to allow Russia to expand in this same way here. Okay, so that is something that is kind of the end, one of the nails in the coffin of the age of Metternich. Okay, that's something that is going to be very important here. So the Crimean War is also kind of a catalyst for modernization. If you read Tennyson's poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade, that after the Crimean War, the British, they gave up the practice of selling commissions so that you had to have a certain amount of money to be a military officer. So as far as that goes, the Crimean War, I don't know if it would be the first thing I would use as context for World War I. I would be more likely to use the Second Industrial Revolution would be my context for both World War I and the new imperialism. Okay, so the Second Industrial Revolution, the Crystal Palace, the Bessemer process. The Bessemer process is what allows for the mass production of steel, which is driving the Second Industrial Revolution. So just kind of keep that in mind. So while we're talking about wars, we've got another question here. It looks like Stanley is asking about the 7 Years' War. Now, the 7 Years' War, all you really need to know when we look at the course and exam description is that the 7 Years' War is an example of a war over colonies. Some people call the 7 Years' War the first truly world war because you've got the North American front that we call the French and Indian War in U.S. history, which a lot of y'all be taking a push next year. And then, we'll see, with, as far away as, as India, they're going to be fighting this. So the 7 Years' War was a fight partly over colonies, okay? Like when we're looking at colonies, the 7 Years' War is partly a fight over colonies. So that's something that you want to keep in mind for that. And other than that, it's not really, you don't have to know about like Frederick the Great's military campaigns during the 7 Years' War or what's going on in Europe. But remember, it ends with the French losing all of their North American colonies. So when we think about the rise of Britain, the 7 Years' War is very, very important when Britain is set up as one of the, basically the great power in the eastern half of North America. Okay, so Britain is going to get Canada. Britain is going to get, all of the land in the present day United States up to the Mississippi River. So that's something when we're thinking about the rise of Britain as a world power, getting Gibraltar in the Treaty of Utrecht or winning the 7 Years' War. Those are some things that are important there. Okay, so what is the difference between imperialism and the new imperialism? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here that, basically new imperialism, LEQ. Okay, so this is a comparison LEQ that is from, so the 2018 AP Euro exam. Now, I'm going to share some tutoring notes here. Okay, so I'm going to share some tutoring notes. And these are just some informal notes that I'm going to share with y'all in the chats. So let's go ahead and put this here. So, imperialism, LEQ notes. Okay, so this is from 2018. So I wrote some sample essays. All right, the writing prompts, NJF's most loyal grouper or something like that. Okay, so as far as that, thank you for the super chat, by the way. So with that, let's see. So this is imperialism, LEQ prompt. Okay, now one thing that I'm going to say, and I think I'm doing you a favor, NJF, is that what I'm going to say here is that don't worry about the prompts because the DBQ is process oriented. Okay, so that's something that the DBQ is process oriented. And so what we want to understand here is when we're considering the DBQ, that it's process oriented. We want to know how to write the DBQ. Okay, that's what we're concerned about, is focusing on the writing of the DBQ and telling myself one of the affirmations. Okay, there are a few affirmations that I want you to say before you go into the AP European History exam. And first of all, I am the world's greatest expert in European history. Tell yourself that before you open up the booklet for the multiple choice. It'll give you some confidence that you need so you're not second guessing yourself. And then tell yourself, I can answer the DBQ no matter the topic, okay? No matter what the topic is. So with that, that's something that you want to think about, okay? So, when we're thinking about, absolutism, okay, you think about, hey, I'm ready for that, so you probably listen to my WAP parody either on my SoundCloud or the music video here on YouTube, the WAP parody where Peter the Great Russian Tsar might have heard of me, warm water port, yeah, that's where I want to be, European tour, going west, want to come with me, I'd rather die than have a noble running me, shave that beard, show me them lips, better grab a hammer because I'm building ships, sailing down to Azov for a campaign, Turks couldn't hold the place after I came, I got a warm water airport, ruling absolutely. Wear French fashions in my court, ruling absolutely. Yes, that's me in that book you're reading, ruling absolutely. Defeating Charles XII of Sweden, ruling absolutely. When it comes to kings, I ain't mediocre. In Western Europe, I'm the power broker. So that's, between Louis XIV and Peter the Great. So remember, I've got a SoundCloud. I've got, if you just type in Warm Water Records into YouTube, you'll see where I've got some of these things there. But basically, just be ready. Like, no matter what the DBQ is, you can do this. So let's go over using an old LEQ prompt, talking about the differences between the age of exploration, kind of OG imperialism, and the new imperialism. So what we see here in the prompt is evaluate the extent to which Europe's interactions with its overseas colonies in the period 1500 to 1650, differed from its interactions with its overseas colonies in the period 1815 to 1914. So with that, what we're doing here is basically we're looking to compare and contrast the motives of, old imperialism and new imperialism and stuff like that. So the age of exploration, when we're thinking about that, I like to set these things up in boxes, okay? So when we look at the age of exploration, what we're seeing here is if we think about things that are unique to 1500 to 1650, the New World and the Americas, that's where a lot of things are focused on. When we think about colonization, okay? So, gold and precious metals, mercantilism, conquistadors, and conversion to Christianity as a primary goal. Now, when we think about 1815 to 1914, the context being the industrial revolutions. Now, if you get one of these, one recommendation I might have possibly for historical context, if it's one of these comparison-focused LEQs, is for your historical context, pick something. You've got these two things that are separated by an amount of time, right? 1650 to 1815. That is a great place for your context. If it does something like this, where it is, splitting up two things and it's got a period of time in between there. Okay, so you want to think about that, when we think about your historical context. So in this sense, I might think about historical context, the industrial revolutions, okay? And then we're talking about Africa and Asia. Now, what they want a source of raw materials and an expansion of markets for European industrial goods. Darwinism and social Darwinism and the impact on imperialism there, and, something like Kipling's The White Man's Burden, okay? Now, common to both. European cultural superiority and a mission to civilize other cultures. Now I'm going to note here, quote unquote, civilize other cultures, right? So Europeans use superior technology to conquer native peoples. Europeans expected others to adopt their culture and beliefs. Expansion of global trade / increased economic growth and interdependence. So I've got a thesis statement here, okay? Then I've got some body paragraphs, so you can see some things here in terms of that. Now remember, a conclusion is not necessary, but you do want to restate your thesis without looking at the original thesis. So hopefully that's something that y'all will find helpful. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and see what else we've got here. And is the chat not moving? I have not seen the chat move in some time. What's going on with the chat on Crowdcast? Let's consider what's going on there. I don't know what's happening in the Crowdcast chat. All right. So a rundown of the English Civil War. Jia, it is a written test, right? So as far as that goes, the English Civil War, there are two causes, okay? I think in terms of Parliament and Protestantism. And this is part of the overall English rejection of absolutism and saying that they are going to opt for constitutionalism. Now, note here the coronation of King Charles III, which is kind of funny because he's choosing to keep his name Charles, which Charles I got his head cut off. Charles II was better known for his adventurous lifestyle than he was for ruling. So now we're going to have King Charles III. It is not the most auspicious name for an English monarch to have. But now note here, J1, C1, then Cromwell, C2, J2, okay? James the First, Charles the First, Charles the Second, and James the Second. Okay, so as far as that goes, little rundown of the English Civil War, that James the First and Charles the First were trying to rule absolutely, but they were no Louis the 14th, and this was not France. That England had a tradition of having these parliaments, and so those who were against what James and Charles were trying to do, that they are not they are not on board with what's with what's happening, and they say, look, you're trying to enforce religious uniformity, which goes back to the Elizabethan settlement. Now, the Anglican Church, for the Puritans, these Puritans, they were followers of John Calvin, and they said the Anglican Church, it feels too Catholic. It's not Protestant enough. Okay, and that is a big problem, because James the First and Charles the First, they prefer a Church of England that has like a very kind of high church sort of style about it. Okay, so a very high church kind of style. All right, so it looks like that is still going. It must be something particularly on my Crowdcast where the chat just does not seem to be going. So my apologies there. On the YouTube chat, I can still get in there and and shout out and stuff. So I can still see the questions as well. So with that, the English Civil War. Now the other thing is Parliament. Charles Charles the First thought he could govern without Parliament, and so then he was proven wrong, and they cut his head off. Okay, now I've got an exhaustive treatment of the Stuarts, James the First, Charles the First, Charles the Second, James the Second, on my YouTube channel. Okay, wow. Can I review the French Revolution? Okay, can I review the French Revolution? Wow, that is a tall order. Now, a few things that I'm going to give you, a few handouts. If you Google causes of the French Revolution, Tom Ritchie, you will get to a handout that I've got online that goes into the different causes of the French Revolution. So I'm going to go ahead and put this handout in the chats. Okay, so causes of the French Revolution. Okay, that is something that's going to be on my website there. And let me go ahead and put this in the Crowdcast chat. Hopefully that will show up, even if, let's see, causes of the French Revolution. Okay, and that's a handout that I think will be helpful for you. So when we're thinking about the causes of the French Revolution, and let me just look, yeah, I'm just not sure why I'm not seeing that that Crowdcast chat. But with that, when we look at the causes of the French Revolution, now another one, I'm going to say the Three Estates Explained. Okay, so the Three Estates Explained, and you might have to put Tom Ritchie. Okay, you'll have to put the Three Estates Explained, Tom Ritchie, and that is going to get you to another handout where I explain the Three Estates. So let me go ahead and put that into the chat as well. Parker, that's YOU''RE. All right, so the Three Estates Explained. All right, and so let me go ahead and put that into the Crowdcast chat as well. Okay, so the Three Estates Explained. Okay, so we've got this here, the Three Estates Explained. So causes of the French Revolution, the Three Estates Explained, and did Napoleon betray the French Revolution? You actually don't have to put Tom Ritchie after that. That should come up pretty quickly. And so I've got something here where I'll go into a third handout. So these are three handouts that I think will be helpful for you. Okay, so did Napoleon betray the French Revolution? Okay, so, and I tell you, I love to talk about the French Revolution. So let me just go ahead and get that in the other chat there. Did Napoleon betray the French Revolution? Okay. All right. So with that, let me go ahead and get into these, get into these things here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just give y'all an introduction to these handouts that I'm sharing here. All right, and remember, Romulus Euro is available at the App Store and on Google Play, $2.99, just a little trivia app that's going to help you, stop you from drawing a blank. Also, it's a good way to see what you need to study. If you go through a set and you're like, whoa, this stuff's not familiar to me, might need to study it. If you're getting stuff that you're like, hey, this is familiar to me, then, maybe not something you need to spend a lot of time studying. So it's a great little tool. Again, the questions are not stimulus based, and it's not trying to be, okay? Just trying to help you know what you need for the exam and make sure you know. So, causes of the French Revolution, the French financial crisis. The French government is having trouble with its finances after losing the 7 Years' War, after intervening in the American Revolution, adding a bunch of debt, okay? The royal family living in luxury at Versailles. We see the church and the nobility exempt from forms of taxation such as the tile. The French government's financial crisis led to the calling of the Estates General. Note that the lower classes were poor. There were grain shortages, and also wages were lowering. So if you were, the working class, the peasantry, the sans-culottes, not so good for you. The rise of the bourgeoisie, this professional class. Now, one thing that I'll note here, if you go to marcolearning.com/AP Euro, okay, marcolearning.com/AP Euro, we have 11 topical study guides here, of which one of them was just finished. A lot of people asked me to talk about the Russian Revolution, okay? And so we've got a brand new study guide on the Russian Revolution, okay? So this is something here, the Russian Revolution of 1905, the Bolshevik Revolution, Lenin's new economic policy, okay? That is brand new. You are the first one to look at this if you go to marcolearning.com/AP Euro. One that I would pay attention to, a lot of them from the earlier periods, but we're getting into some other topics, okay? So we see here, 18th century art and culture, getting into the literary enlightenment and pamphleteering, Diderot's encyclopedia, Montesquieu. So when we're thinking about the influence of Enlightenment philosophy, that's something that is a causal factor in the French Revolution. Now, we've got a little bit of emphasis on the consumer revolution, okay? Like basically what's going on in the 18th century is the middle class, they start to willfully imitate aristocratic taste, okay? And so they start spending money on luxury goods, hoping to show status. And this is one of those things that gets into that, some of that bourgeois behavior that draws criticism from people like Karl Marx. Before the 18th century, the bourgeoisie tended to be like very disciplined in its spending and very frugal. But the bourgeoisie is starting to say, in a lot of cases, these bourgeoisie have more money than nobles. And so they say, we want to imitate this luxury spending. Now, another thing, the consumption of sugar more than doubled during the 18th century. And remember that sugar, it is the most profitable cash crop in the, in the Americas. And it is, it is something that's being grown with slave labor at the time. Like sugar is so addictive that people don't even care about the way it's made. And Candide, when we're thinking about the literary enlightenment, Voltaire, they go to South America and, they see this slave with a hand cut off and a foot cut off, and it's like, this is what you're doing to get your sugar. Okay, so the consumer revolution, the bourgeoisie, they're wanting to rise in status and get those privileges like the nobility have. Now, neoclassical art, that's one of the things that we'll be talking about in the art review at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. The Art of Euro, if you're on YouTube, if you might need to refresh if you've been here from the beginning, but it's in the video description. A $10 ticket not only gets you in, but also your friends. And I'll be talking about art for about a good 75 minutes, maybe even up to an hour and a half. So neoclassical art is something that is reinforcing the values of the Enlightenment. And remember, it looks a lot like Renaissance art, but it's also focusing on secularism. Okay, it's also, you're not going to see a lot of Jesus, the saints, the Virgin Mary like you see in a lot of Renaissance art. So it's a revival of the classical style, but just with different themes and a more of a nod towards secularism. So as far as that goes, We've got the Treaty of Versailles. We got national unification. So remember, I'm going to be going to Marco Learning's YouTube channel at 9 o'clock. Now you can go to youtube.com/Marco Learning. Now, as far as that goes, let's figure out how long I want to be doing this stream here. I think we've got enough people to get Marco Learning to 35.5. Okay. So this will be the difference between me stopping this at 840 or stopping this at 850. Okay. So I think if we go to 35.4, then we go to 845. If we go to 35.5 on Marco Learning, I'll keep going until 850. Okay. So let's go ahead and go to youtube.com/Marco Learning and let's get Marco Learning up past 35.5. We can do this. We've got enough people in here to do that. So then, we see the influences of Enlightenment philosophy. So just a little introduction to Locke, Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. If you need a detailed refresher, you can go to my lecture series on the Enlightenment on YouTube. And then the ineptitude of Louis XVI. So just a little guide that's going into the causes of the French Revolution. Now, the three estates explained. Now, one thing we'll note here is the first estate is the clergy, okay? The second estate, the nobility. But we need to note as well that the third estate is not just the third estate. The third estate makes up over 95% of the population. There are three distinct groups in the third estate, okay? The bourgeoisie being the French professional class. Now, some people say middle class, but I like to think of it as professional class. These are people who are generally educated. They do white collar work. They wear like a white dress shirt to work kind of thing. They wear breeches. Their work requires an education. They made up about 8% of the population. So really the bourgeoisie at the time are a pretty small part of the population. Their goals are to abolish aristocratic privileges, set up a constitutional monarchy on the British model. They have a lot of influence during the liberal phase of the French Revolution. Then you want to think about the sans-culottes. These are the urban middle class, the shopkeepers, the laborers, those people who wear long pants instead of breeches. Now, this is about a fourth of the population. Now, what about the remaining 2/3? The peasantry. And, the peasantry are always kind of in the background. When we're studying the French Revolution, so much always focuses on Paris. But as far as that goes, the peasantry made up the single largest group in France, and they tended to be supportive of the church and the monarchy. Now, note here, they were very conservative, tended to support the church and the monarchy as long as the church and the monarchy didn't make excessive financial demands from them. So as far as that goes, when the French government got rid of mandatory tithes, where the French farmers had to give 10% of their produce. Okay, they were required to give 10% of their produce. So the decrees of August 4th, that was also something that was aimed at the peasantry. And when Napoleon said that, look, the Concordat of 1801, that is going to bring back the Catholic Church, but also Napoleon confirmed purchases of church lands. So a lot of these landowning peasants during the French Revolution, kind of like when Henry VIII sold English monastery lands, French peasants, a lot of them bought church properties. And Napoleon said, you get to keep those church properties that you bought during the French Revolution. Now, that brings us to having to ask, to what extent was Napoleon the logical conclusion? To what extent was Napoleon the defender of the French Revolution and continuity? Or to what extent was he a betrayer of the French Revolution? Now, what I love about looking at Napoleon is we get to talk about, what did the French Revolution mean? In order to ask, did Napoleon betray the French Revolution? We have to ask here, did Napoleon, what did the French Revolution mean in the first place? So if the French Revolution was about representative government, if it was about, French people being able to be in representative bodies, that's going to be a failure because Napoleon ruled pretty much as an autocrat. But then again, there's a distinction between representative government and popular government. Now, Napoleon, he referred to himself as not Emperor of France, not Emperor of the land of France, divine right, but Emperor of the French. I am the Emperor of the French people. I am the people's emperor. I rule by the graces of the people. So a plebiscite, which he basically said, hey, do you support me being emperor or not? And that doesn't really meet our standards today for an election, but it certainly was more, more progressive than, most European rulers were doing at the time. Equality under the law. So when we think about the Napoleonic Code, it did not restore the three estates. Basically, you see that all French citizens are equal under the law, under the Napoleonic Code, which was the first proper law code that France ever had. The Concordat of 1801, remember when Napoleon reestablished the Catholic Church as the majority religion, not the state religion. So when we think about, for example, classical liberalism, that Napoleon, although he said the Catholic Church will have privileges as the majority religion of France, he also allowed a great deal of religious toleration, even, paid Protestant clergy and stuff like that. Now, also Napoleon, French nationalism. France was never greater before Napoleon, was never greater after Napoleon. And so Napoleon was a very, very popular ruler. Now, also note here for nationalism that Napoleon established French as the only language of instruction in schools. Napoleon established French as the only language of the court. So justice may be blind, but she speaks French, okay, in Napoleonic France. So as far as that goes, let's go ahead and look at Marco Learning. They were at 35.3. Are we going to continue this stream or are we going to cut it off? Let's see, 35.3. Let's see where we are now. Okay, 35.4, that got us some time. We'll go to at least 8:45. If we get to 35.5, then we are going to go to 8:50, okay? Now, maybe we'll go to 55 if it's 35.6. Who knows, okay? But as far as that goes, we are now going till 8:45. Okay, so if you haven't subscribed yet to Marco Learning, be sure to do that. And remember, marcolearning.com/AP Euro, free study guides there, okay? So yeah, we got enough to get Marco Learning way up there, because that's where I'm going to be at 9 o'clock, and you're going to have to subscribe to be able to talk in the chat. So YouTube, let's see who we've got on YouTube. We've got Elsie, we've got Beagle Ben and Jacob. All right, good to see y'all there. Jack D. I'm going to do some Instagram shout outs as well, ladies and gentlemen. So as far as that, oh, it's Mental Health Month. All right, so excellent. So going from there, ladies and gentlemen, we want to just Instagram shout outs. I'm going to be doing that in a little bit. We've got Career 19 and C Trend with some numbers after that, okay? And so Izzy Z_Z_Y. So at Tom Ritchie on Instagram, I'll be doing some other Instagram shout outs. We got Jonathan _Bell 81 _ Sophia Sim. We've got Isaiah No Cap. That is really Isaiah No Cap. Can I explain the causes of the Russian Revolution? Okay, so Abraham, again, we want to reiterate that we've got this review guide, marcolearning.com/AP Euro. Okay, so as far as that goes, marcolearning.com/AP Euro, and you can download my brand new Russian Revolution study guide. Okay, so if we think about the historical context here, Russia had begun the process of modernization in the late 19th century, but it still lagged behind Western Europe when it came to industrialization and the development of democratic institutions. So they are industrializing, but they are still an absolute monarchy at the turn of the 20th century. The Russian Revolution resulted in the creation of the Soviet Union, a communist superstate that stood for over 70 years. The Soviet Union presented a significant challenge to the European balance of power and a perceived threat to the survival of democracy in Europe. The threat of the spread of Soviet communism resulted in a closer relationship between Western Europe and the United States. Now, the Bolsheviks, these were the people who were in the, basically leading. Let's see. I had a little brownout or something like that. I don't know what's going on here. I think I've still got power, so that's good. But Okay. So right now we're good. So as far as that goes, the Russian Revolution, you've actually got three revolutions. You've got, first of all, the 1905 revolution. So, Nicholas II was the czar. He was having a lot of trouble around 1905. Russia's industrializing. It's beginning to urbanize. You have a big, gathering of Russian workers in St. Petersburg, Russia, the city founded by Tsar Peter the Great. And so basically what happens here is that Nicholas, I don't think, is even in residence at that time in St. Petersburg, that the Russian military fires into the crowd and kills people, kills over 100 protesters. This was known as Bloody Sunday. Now, after Bloody Sunday, there were calls for Nicholas's abdication, basically for him to give up being the czar. And so Nicholas issued the October Manifesto, not to be confused with the October Revolution, which is the Bolshevik Revolution. So, but note the October Manifesto, Nicholas is pledging to give Russia a representative body. So their constitution of 1906 created a state Duma, which is Russia's representative body that's created. But Russian liberals were very disappointed because basically, just like with the early stages of the French Revolution, kind of like where we look at Louis XVI got an absolute veto, Nicholas II got the same thing. And he was using that veto to veto legislation he didn't like. And so what we see here is that it does not successfully create a working constitutional state. Now, we also want to note here, Russia's entry into World War I on the side of the Entente powers was a disaster. Okay, that's something that it was an outright disaster. So the Germans were much more industrialized. If we look at World War I Eastern Front, okay, if we want to understand how the balance of power had failed to work, how Germany and Britain were so far ahead of other countries when it came to industrialization, we see that the Russians had twice as many men on the Eastern Front. They're still the most populous country in Europe today. So twice as many men. They've got more cavalry, more men riding horses. They've got just a few less light guns, but note that they've got less than half as many heavy guns. Now, when the Russians are fighting the Austrians, they're doing okay. But when they're fighting the Germans, we look here that casualties and losses, the Germans 300,000 killed, to the Russians over 2 million dead. Okay, and so this is the sort of thing that there are more Romanians killed on the Eastern Front than Germans. Okay, and so now note here the Austrians, the Russians and the Austrians were more evenly matched, but the Germans, they were, much more developed. So World War I is the war of the Second Industrial Revolution. So back to marcolearning.com/AP Euro. Now, basically, World War I results in the collapse of the Tsar's government in early 1917. So the provisional government. This was a Russian republic. They tried to go in the, build a constitutional democracy, but then it was, they were still trying to fight the war, and Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks took advantage of that. And so they did everything they could to undermine the provisional government, which was both trying to govern and fight this war that Russia was losing badly at the same time. So the Petrograd Soviet, Petrograd is the Russian way to refer to St. Petersburg, Peter City, right? A Russian workers' council that became increasingly dominated by the communist Bolsheviks. So the provisional government put its energies into continuing to fight the war, while the Bolsheviks put their energies into undermining the provisional government. Now we are at 8:45. Let's see if we've got some more subscriptions for Marco Learning's YouTube channel. Okay, so point 4, are we going? Okay, let's make sure that we subscribe, because I'm going to be over there in a little bit, and I don't want to be broadcasting on a channel with 35,400 subscribers. So let me go ahead and just make a little note there in the chat. Just remind y'all to to go in and subscribe to youtube.com/Marco Learning. Okay, so youtube.com/Marco Learning. And again, we're going to go on another 5 minutes if we can get to 35.6. Okay, so we got a lot of people, or 35.5. Okay, so again, And remember, let me just do a little promotion here. Remember that Romulus Euro is available at the App Store. While we're waiting on this, and I need to actually consider that French Revolution question having been answered, because I'm talking about the Russian Revolution, right? So as far as that goes, I'm going to check on Marco Learning's channel again very shortly. But remember, we've got Romulus Euro, which is only $2.99 at the App Store, just a handy little trivia app. Okay, and so handy and humble little trivia app, only $2.99 there. And remember, the art of Euro. Okay, so we want to remember the art of Euro. That is a premium session that's going to be happening in a little bit. And so make sure that you're looking there. Let's see, did we get Marco Learning to 35.5? All right, we're there. Okay, and remember, we'll go to 55 if we get to 35.6 thousand. Okay, so let's go and get them up there. So the provisional government collapses, but then that creates the Russian Civil War. Okay, so that goes on till about 23. And so we want to note you've got Lenin, of course, the dominant figure there, and the NEP. You down with NEP? Yeah, you know me. All right, y'all. Some of y'all probably don't get that. Your teachers would understand the reference. So, it's like an old school, like early 90s rap, kind of thing there. So during the Civil War, Lenin had this policy of war communism. But after the Russian Civil War, the economy is on the brink of collapse. Lenin says, look, we're going to chill out a little bit. That Russia probably wasn't, Marx said Russia wasn't quite ready for a revolution. Karl Marx, like doctrinaire orthodox Marxism, says that a country must get a certain stage of industrial development to have had a proper bourgeois revolution before having a communist revolution. Lenin said, you know what, if we've got a revolutionary vanguard, and that's what this goes into, that Lenin disagrees with Marx, because Marx said, look, the working classes, once the bourgeois society has attained a certain level of development, that the working class will independently form a sense of class consciousness. And so Lenin believed we need a revolutionary vanguard that will guide the proletariat, the working classes, to a formation of revolutionary class consciousness. Now, Lenin says, look, we're going to chill out a little bit and we're going to establish a mixed economy. So basically, major industries will stay under the control of the government, but also while allowing some forms of private enterprise. Okay, so basically petty capitalism. So when I'm talking about, hey, I'm doing the art of Euro, later on there, okay, I'm doing the art of Euro. And so that's something that, that's an example of petty capitalism. Okay. And so, I am, I'm a petty capitalist, right? I run a little tutoring company and that sort of thing as well. So, smaller businesses and stuff, Lenin's like, go ahead. But if it's heavy industry, if it's a large corporation, if it's the banking system, those things will be taken over by the state. And Lenin is not losing faith in communism. He's just saying, look, we're probably going to have to let like capitalism and communism live alongside each other for a little while before, the Russian state is mature enough to go on to the next level. So have we gotten to 35.6? All right, have we gotten a 35.6? Almost there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to that 35.6 so we can go for just a few minutes more here. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and see what we've got in the YouTube chat. All right, Jaden and Nick. All right, there. Anyone want to play FIFA? Maybe tomorrow night, Jacob. So with that, all right. So we've got here. Let's see, top voted question. Okay, so Sophia, I tell you what, or Sophia, whatever we call you, the top voted question. Can I go over Germany's situation from World War II? Okay, now one thing we want to note here, Sophia, I tell you, that was industrious. She is a go-getter. Okay, so excellent there, Sophia. So Germany, we've got Ariana Rahman. Okay, has just followed me there. Ariana Rahman, thank you for the follow. We've also got Zozo Cat 523, Boy Getter 123. Okay, so as far as that goes, we've got Jacob. I was saying hey to Jacob a little while ago in the chat. Emily Clements. We've got Nat Goodell, the real Jacob Jankows. Let's see, Simp for you. All right, Sienna Brooklyn and Christina Grasso and Tyson and Michael Benzex. All right, very awesome there. So with that, what we want to know about Germany after World War II, first of all, the United States and Britain had like freaking carpet bombed those cities. Like, and by carpet bombing, it's bombing as if you're laying carpet. Like, not just military targets, industrial targets. These are, you are targeting the whole thing. Residential neighborhoods. Remember, World War II was a total war, okay? And so as far as that goes, World War II is a total war. And so then Germany, after the war was basically completely destroyed, and there was this, I think they call it in German, Wunderschaffen, okay? The economic miracle. Like in West Germany, you have the economic miracle. Basically, the Minister of Finance or Economics, he said that we're going to get rid of price controls. We are going to have a straight up free market economy. And everybody was like, you're crazy. Like the American occupying general just heard the proposal and he said, this sounds like it's very risky. And Erhard says that, you know what? My own people told me that it's crazy as well. But he's like, we're going to try it. We're going to get rid of all price controls. We're just going to let the economy run and we're going to see what happens. And it is just massive economic growth. Like when you look at West Germany and East Germany during the Cold War, there is no comparison. Okay. So as far as that goes, the German economic miracle, okay, that is, and again, the Wirtschaften wonder, okay, the Wirtschaften wonder, and Ludwig Erhard, yeah. So basically, when you think about the Volkswagen Beetle, like that old, the old Volkswagen Beetle, just all of the stuff. I mean, it is just leaps and bounds. So when we think about Germany after World War I, okay, Germany after World War I and Germany after World War II. Germany after World War I struggling with those reparations, right? We've got something on marcolearning.com/AP-Euro. We've got some things there that are going to be helpful to you. And then so on the Treaty of Versailles, one of them focuses on that. So then, as far as we go from there, that that the economic miracle, and again, you've got basically West Germany, the British and American zones. The French then get a zone of occupation, but by 1949, 1950, they've said let's just call this West Germany, and West Germany comes into NATO, and their economy is just doing awesome. Okay, so with that, ladies and gentlemen, are we going to hang around just a few minutes, or are we going to close up shop right now? Marco Learning's at 35.5. Let's see if we can get it to 36. All right, let's see if we can get it to 36. So as far as that goes, 35.5. Let's see if we can get it to 36. And I am going to be heading over there. Now, remember, you'll have to subscribe if you're going to, if you're going to participate in the chat. So as far as that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get into, this AP Euro session. I'm going to go ahead and leave links in both of the chats, okay? And so remember also at 9:30, you can see the link in the YouTube video description. I'll be doing the Art of Euro, okay? So the Art of Euro, that is tagged in the YouTube chat. And also, let's see, let's go ahead and just note, join me at 9 on Marco Learning's channel, okay? So as far as that goes, that's what we're going to see there. Okay. So, oh my goodness, we'll go ahead and just delete that. So as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, we've got that. And then of course, in the Crowdcast chat, let's go ahead and get into there. The, the German economic miracle, the Wirtschaften wonder. Okay. I tell you that in German is a funny language, isn't it? So, join me here. Okay. So, join me here. And of course, as well, make sure that, y'all do know about the Art of Euro. That's something that y'all have, the option. That is a premium review. And, I'm considering possibly, getting up at 6 a.m. and doing like a morning broadcast, possibly. Would anybody be interested in having something the morning of the exam? And so as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, we've got here the Art of Euro. Okay. So yes, that's, so as far as that goes, exactly. Okay. So, so going with that. So James, I didn't necessarily miss much on the on the Crowdcast chat. So let's go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and head over to the, let's head over to Marco Learning's channel. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, wishing everybody the best of luck. And it is always a pleasure.